For a narrative punch, the DM would break arms and feet. This, of course, would then have in-story consequences. The bard could not play their instrument, the fighter could not use their shield. Healing spells only fixed hit points, not the narrative damage or whatever. So you had to find a healer to set your bones straight, or what have you. The game was naturally not balanced around that, and we didn't understand the rules. So here we are, like level 4 characters, and when the bard broke their wrist, we had to investigate it as if it was some kind of mythical curse with unknown properties. Was that the game? Do we need to backtrack? Does it naturally fix itself? Will it happen to someone else? It could have been fine. But we, the players, were just so confused and put off. One guy quit immediately, and we had to de-escalate and reset 2 sessions after the introduction of those injuries. In theory, it may be interesting, for when a character has some kind of heinous injury, they need to go to some kind of healer.
Whoa! Welcome back to the world of the living.
And it could result in some cool roleplay, but when there's magic in the world, and it's used to just interrupt whatever the players are doing, this not only requires a healthy amount of suspension of disbelief, it also requires for the players to suck up a lot of annoyance, which most people are just not going to do in their, free time. I always sucked at making posts like this, so I'm sorry if this is all over the place. This is a story from when my friends and I played D&D for the first time ever, 5th edition. Our Dungeon Master was a huge fan, but had no one to play with, and decided to introduce us all to Roll20 and how the game worked, in hopes of setting up a campaign for us to enjoy. Our game was set in your trusty good old high fantasy world, with a balanced party: Paladin, Warlock, Fighter, Rogue, and Blood Hunter. However, the campaign overall progressed very turbulently? Took me a second, okay? Lacking a balance of fair encounters, and most of the time our characters would be utterly defeated by enemies at hand, and constantly needed to be saved by one of his cool NPCs. This particular saving of our characters was what he called the training wheels. I was always rather annoyed because even when I tried to think of any sort of plan or solution, nothing would ever work. Literally, even the best case scenario of each encounter wouldn't even come close to victory. I'm talking surprise round, good initiative, everything hits, high damage rolls, and good positioning, and I still don't see us winning. High-level DM NPCs would randomly spawn in our camps and threaten us just for the fun of it, and somehow they know about all the actions we took in complete secret. With this stuff, I could go on for literally forever. As we were approaching a certain point of our story, he exclaimed that this is it. Our training wheels are being taken off, and now we are responsible for our mistakes. We were set to investigate a town of cultists. We get to meet a commander who promised us access to his inner circle if we slayed 3 manticores that were prowling his territory. This was a pretty ridiculous encounter, considering 2 of us, Fighter and Paladin, could do nothing to them as they floated in the sky, and then he made them fly out of range of the characters who could attack them constantly in the first place. What a fun way to play our first campaign, huh? Keep in mind that we were all level 3, fighting 3 supremely intelligent and buffed special manticores somehow. Anyway, our Blood Hunter was getting pretty banged up. They constantly focused him with their multi-attack, and he was nearing 0 hit points. This is when our Warlock shot another Eldritch Blast, and the horror and nightmare began. He rolled a critical fail. Our Dungeon Master made weapon attack crit fails break your sword or attack yourself. And for spell crit fails, he rolled a dice equal to how many applicable targets there were in range and made it randomly attack one of them. The dice landed on our Blood Hunter and hit him automatically, dropping him down to 0 hit points exactly. However, the DM told him he was outright dead, that nothing was left of his character more than a speck of dust and a tiny bit of his ashes. Alright, just gotta roll for the attack. Dang it. Well, not every attack is gonna be a hit. Well, at the very least, I'm just missing the Mr. Warlock. How did I even hit? Okay, look, I got a healing potion. Don't worry, man. I'm coming to... No. I don't feel so... What the fuck? You heard it here, folks. No death saves, no nothing. Another player's crit fail Eldritch Blast just disintegrated a player character. He told us that dying to any magical attack meant that you died outright. With that said, to make it worse, no matter what the now dead player said, the DM wasn't allowing it. He did not allow him to make a new character and continue playing with us because it would break continuity. He did not allow him to retcon the outcome just purely for the sake of continuing to hang out with us on Thursdays and Fridays. This one is for fun, by the way, since it didn't end there, but our Dungeon Master made us take double the damage of a spell if we crit failed on the saving throw. This got our rogue to suffer the exact same fate a few sessions later, being disintegrated by an acid splash he crit failed on. Oh, and when asked once about the lack of fairness in the encounters, he told us that this was simply what was in the adventure module he purchased, and that we simply failed to overcome it because of our incompetence. Well, this guy sounds like a dick. First and foremost, it's fundamentally impossible for modules to be designed for every party. Sometimes you're gonna need to make small adjustments to how a module frames a fight due to party composition or even just the amount of players. So just at a baseline, the Dungeon Master's reasoning is heavily flawed. But on top of that, the Dungeon Master is making sweeping homebrew changes to D&D's system of combat to make it way more difficult. And look, I'm all for a good old difficult combat, but this is taking things a little bit far. Now, the DM does have training wheels, and I do the same thing. Pre-level 5, I give my party tips on ideal strategies in combat. I'm just giving them pointers. Nothing crazy, I'm not saying you have to do these things, but a little advice might help. However, the DM's version of Training Wheels is a literal army of DM PCs who randomly pop in to morally lecture the party, which that's inconvenient. Allied NPCs can work, but not like this. Not when it feels like they're dragging you by a leash. NPCs supplement. They don't lead and they don't take the spotlight, and this DM is using them for both. Basically, if this guy's looking for incompetence, he should look in the mirror, because he's gonna find plenty. I am a new player to D&D, as in it's been over 2 years since I started playing it. A friend of mine introduced me to it, and I found that there were no D&D games in my town, so my mom helped me find people. Apparently there was a high demand for a game, so she was only able to make 2 groups. One for people my age, I'm over 18, so we were all young adults, and one for the kids, like 10 to 15. Oh great, it's a teenager story. Those always go wonderfully. There was a 13-year-old, however, who we'll call Bugbear, who wanted to play in my group. He sounded experienced, so the Dungeon Master in my group allowed him in. Session 0 came along, and I'll quickly name the most important people in the game. The DM, Scotty, a guy who was really nice and helped me make my character from scratch at Session 0, Viking, the brother of Scotty and gnome brother of Scotty's character, Dragonborn, a warlock Dragonborn, Rogue, a human bard rogue, and problem player Bugbear. In Session 0, Bugbear was very excited, like constantly interrupting conversation to talk about his character or whatever D&D meme he wanted to show off on his phone. I guess it could be considered a red flag, and he stopped when Scotty asked him to, but Bugbear wanted me and him to combine our backstories. I'm a life cleric who accidentally worshipped an evil god, and Bugbear is a monk who got kicked out of his monastery because of the voices in his head, so he decided that it would be the same god. I didn't mind, and I thought it would make for a more exciting game either way. Then it was Session 1, which Bugbear wasn't there for. Had an after-school something or something. Nothing much to say about the campaign story, except all of our characters got along well, and it was one of those intriguing mystery plots, so I felt like it was going to be a good game and a great group. Then it was next week, Session 2, the only time Bugbear ever played with us. Before the game started, he asked if Dragonborn was down for roughhousing, things like play fighting, and they agreed, so Bugbear asked me to heal them both when this happened. I said it was fine. Oh, it was in-game. I thought they were like,
oh, kid fight!
Kid fight?
Kid fight!
So the game starts, and we get our loot from the carriage we were told to guard, because the items seem suspicious, and so when do I show up? Oh, you'll show up later. I'll let you know. I want to cause a bar fight, so have everyone meet me at the bar. And I have this dialogue capitalized because, yeah, he was loud and constantly interrupting the Dungeon Master when he's trying to tell us about important lore and tell us what to do next. We eventually make it to the bar where my character knows his Bugbear and excitedly calls him over, as I'm trying to roleplay my character as seeing an old friend she saw as a sibling. He interrupts again to say something to another player like, "What are you looking at?" He immediately starts swinging at the Dragonborn. So now we're doing a combat, and it goes very quickly. Bugbear and Dragonborn are now at 0 hit points, needing to heal them both and stabilize them. This entire encounter takes over everything else in the session, as Bugbear would not let anyone get a word in edgewise. Poor Scotty just gives up on trying to talk to another NPC and says he's going to the marketplace to look around as this is all happening. I'm still trying to roleplay, telling Bugbear to calm down and explaining what our mission is, but Rogue adds fuel to the fire when Bugbear reveals the voices in his head and decides to do thaumaturgy or something to provoke it. Bugbear is roleplaying his psychic attack, screaming as we're playing in the back room of a tavern restaurant, and once it's all over and done, the Dungeon Master asks me what I wanted to say. I couldn't think of anything, I just stuttered until we moved on. At this point, Viking had to get up from the table and go outside. Scotty checked on him, and then they both came back to say Viking forgot to take his meds today, so they would have to go. Alright, so to summarize, it looks like your character has been instantly downed to below 0 hit points by an ultra-powerful spellcaster. Your lifelong animal companion who dove in to try and save you has also been just straight up murdered, and the party have basically no way to get to you, almost guaranteeing your death. So yeah, that sucks, but I guess we'll get to your turn eventually, but... Oh, wow! I just got a text from my family that... my grandma died. Looks like I need to go. I'm so sorry I'm going to be missing this game, but it's a family emergency. You know how it is. Your grandma died last week. And the week before that. Hey, some people have 3 grandmas. Don't be so judgmental. Is it because of what's going on in the game? Sometimes I've got to punish players. Oh no, it's totally not that. Due to my current circumstances, I'm intimately familiar with people just randomly dying for no reason, but unfortunately I do need to go. Well, will we see you next session? Oh yeah, totally. Be here same time next week. Yup, definitely. Okay, bye! It might be true, but I don't believe it. They were definitely irritated by Bugbear at this point. So we continue the session, me feeling awful about the other 2 leaving. You can pretty much summarize the entire session and Bugbear's behavior as interrupting the Dungeon Master and other interactions, doing chaotic things in character and steaming over what other people are trying to do, loudly talking about things other than what's currently happening. The main things I remember were breaking the hinges off a door of a house we're trying to stealthily break into, wanting to drink pure acid to get drunk off, even when the DM warned him not to do that, and eating my newly bought paper that I'm trying to use to write notes. Near the end of the session, Bugbear initiates another completely random fight with Dragonborn, which drops Dragonborn to 0 hit points. Fortunately, Dragonborn speaks up, saying their character doesn't like to fight that much, which Bugbear replies with, but I want to cause chaos. The DM also supports Dragonborn in this, which gives everyone in the group the courage to agree. Bugbear's response, well, the session was pretty boring, so... Oh sure, that makes sense if you weren't following the story in the first place. After session, I was distraught. I thought the group that we just put together would be over already. Fortunately, DM kicked out Bugbear, but Scotty and Viking refused to come back, even when we told them that Bugbear was gone. My mom was able to calm Bugbear's mom by placing him in the kids group, so happy ending for all, I guess. Well, at least my group has a happy ending. We're all still playing to this day, and now we have a ton of new players that I get along with. And whenever another situation pops up, which could be a horror story all on its own, we work them out maturely. However, according to my mother, Bugbear still continued to cause trouble with this other group, doing the same things he did with my group, like interrupting and doing PvP, and kept trying to play things other than Dungeons & Dragons when he was quote-unquote bored. At one point, he even ran around the restaurant, and the group was nearly kicked out because of it.
You, get out! Get the fuck!
It was all solved eventually, so now one of the kids' parents have to sit in during the game, and no PvP is allowed. I think Bugbear also no longer plays with them. Couldn't fit into his schedule anymore, so I wonder if he'll remain on these adventures in D&D. He's young, so I won't hold it against him for acting like a kid, but you have to be respectful to everyone you play with and listen to others when they say they don't want to do something. I'm glad that at the end you realize that kids are going to be kids. They're stupid. It's part of their nature. It's part of what growing up is. I'm sure every single one of us can look back on our teenage years and point to something that was profoundly particularly stupid. And if you can't, you're either lying or you're still stupid to this day. Anyway, with all that being said, you don't need to deal with a child's immaturity if you don't want to. And by that I mean, you don't need to accept them into your game. D&D games aren't like Destiny raids that last 2 hours. With a D&D game, if you need to deal with a kid, you're going to be dealing with them for a long time if the campaign lasts. And not everyone wants that, and that's okay. But the key is, you shouldn't let them in at the get-go. Of course, there were some, social politics here with the parents and all that, so I understand it. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm glad it worked out for, you guys, at least. Before I begin the story, I'd like to offer a bit of context behind it. I've been a dungeon master for quite a while now, and I've run a few games and ongoing campaigns for my friends. One of my players, we'll call him Frisk for privacy's sake. No, stop. I thought I got away from Undertale. Anyway, Frisk pulled me aside and said our mutual friend of ours wanted to play D&D. I offered to show him the ropes and run a few one-shots with the friend in order to get them interested and introduced to the mechanics of the game. After a few one-shots, Frisk asked me if I'd be interested in being a player for once to take a break from my constant dungeon mastering. I don't mind being a DM, as it allows me to be creative and practice my voice acting, but I agree. And our mutual friend Frisk sets up a small group of players that Frisk will be the dungeon master for. Side note, this will be Frisk's first time as a dungeon master, which I heavily encourage, as I knew that he had a creative mind. Cut forward 2 weeks, and I'm introduced to the party, who are already established with what they want to play. Here, I introduce Frisk, the dungeon master, Neko, the catfolk cleric, I'm just gonna call them by their class names. The sorcerer, a mutual friend who I'll call Artificer, and lastly, our high elf bard, who later proves to be quite the problem. Once I'm told what everyone's gone with, I'm kind of disappointed, as I haven't been a player in quite a while, and my default pick is usually bard, and don't want to re-pick a class that's already chosen, and seeing as how we needed a front-lining tank, I opted to try something new and picked my zealot barbarian Warforged. First session begins, and Frisk gives the party a fairly simple introduction to the world, as we started in a very generic one-by-one you slowly begin to meet at the local tavern. As we begin to introduce our characters and have them meet one by one, the party quickly established there was common interests to explore, form a party, and acquire some coin and status. The party made haste and went to the town's Adventurers Guild in order to form our official party. I should note that by this point, the bard had failed a performance check while playing for a free drink, the sorceress had gotten intoxicated, and the cleric went off to pray at the local church, which ended up breaking the altar and landing him in debt with the church. After arriving at the guild, we were all presented with a small form to fill out. Group members, group name, and most importantly, group leader. Now, as the form was being filled out, no one wished to take responsibility for being the group leader. I decided to take initiative and asked if it was all good for me to be the group leader, which everyone was okay with. Now, being considered the group leader was only for two things. One being to officially sign any high-level group quests, and two, to be handed the rewards at the end. The leader is by no means the person in charge of running all the shots. We begin to take up a few quests, and I begin doing what any normal barbarian would do, with a bit of reflavoring due to being Warforged. I raged and swung my way through each battle, rocking a solid 16 AC with unarmored defense, making sure to keep the heat of the fight on me. We've later come to this back and forth sway where all I hear is, "Hey barbarian, what do you want to do?" Or, "I'm just gonna follow the barbarian around." Or even, "Hey barbarian, what do you..." Didn't you already say that? Anyway. A few sessions went by of exploring, roleplay, and combat. I'm having fun being a player character for once, as I've only ever really DM'd before, and the fifth session was where disaster struck for my barbarian. We've just come out of a combat against a creature that Frisk had made unique to his world. We had just explored this interesting sort of Egyptian-style temple that was also sort of a prison. At the end of combat, 3 player characters had fallen unconscious from a large AoE spell that the monster had used, essentially a reflavored fireball. With a bit of persuasion from our bard, we had gotten 3 health potions at a good price, and as a good team leader, I used the 3 to revive our fallen players. The session soon came to a close, and we all went home. The next day comes around, and I tend to do my work as normal, only be texted by the DM with a, "We need to talk." Now, I've been friends with Frisk for years, so these texts can come with a variety of meanings, so I took it all relaxed. Got to work at night, and Frisk pulled me aside when I got home and says, "Look, I don't know what other ways to say this, but the party," he says this to avoid name dropping, "is complaining about you." I was shocked. I wasn't too sure what happened. He later goes on to explain how the party was complaining that I was too overpowered and I was doing all the work, and how they tried to mutilate him into... manipulate him into nerfing my character. Sorry. I was furious, but I've always been one to avoid confrontation and pointless fights, so I calmed down a bit. I asked if it was okay for me to know who was complaining about me. Frisk had told me that it was mainly Bard with a little bit of Sorcerer. They talked about how I was hogging all the spotlight, and I was using unfair game mechanics for being a dungeon master to make me OP. I was just a level 6 Zealot Barbarian with the Sentinel feat. The group carried on for 2 more sessions, the first one I wasn't a part of due to having a bit of a vacation with my father, and supposedly while I was gone, Bard had gone out of his way to continue complaining, even dropped the comment, "See, it's so much better when Barbarian isn't here." Frisk has had enough by this point and has grown tired of Bard's constant attention-seeking, distractions, playing Overwatch while we were mid-campaign. As the talisman glows with eldritch power, you... Hey, Diva Simp 2643. Are you playing Overwatch right now? I am so sorry. I unmuted. I was just watching a video. I was not watching a video. My roommate was watching a video. I'm so sorry. That's my bad. Whoops. Dude, come on, man. I prepped for like 5 hours for this game. It's a big one. We're trying to... Look, I said sorry, okay? I'm not doing anything. It was my roommate, okay? It was my roommate. Can you just chill out, all right? We can play the game. I'm paying attention, okay? It's not a big deal. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, all right? Can we just get back to the game? Apology accepted. Anyway, as the talisman glows with eldritch might, you feel the power. And complain and questioning about every single detail that Frisk tried to implement. Frisk implemented what he called the punishment dice. It's a D100 with a punishment that goes up in 10s. 1 in 10 is a punishment, 11 to 20 is a punishment, etc. This was implemented more as a general punishment die, so it could happen to any of us if Frisk deemed what we were doing inappropriate or disrespectful at the time. Something out-of-game problems. Something in-game solution. You guys know me. There's literally nothing that bothers me more than quote-unquote solutions like this. Seriously, I don't even know what these punishments are, but this kind of thing is not going to solve any problems at your table. If you have a problem with a player, talk to them about it. Don't implement a punishment dice. Come on. Especially since that sounds like something straight out of 50 Shades of Grey. Just make me feel gross. In a later session, when I did join, I decided to play more passively and decided to make my barbarian a bit clueless as to encourage them to take initiative and do things, as that's where they were complaining. The session continues and combat starts. In order to allow them to do more, I decided to only attack once per turn. I do have an extra attack. The combat ensues and the foe is slain by the cleric, who used Guiding Bolt to take the creature's head off. Everyone's laughing and having fun, or so I thought. Session closes and we all go home. The Dungeon Master texts me about how Bard was complaining more about my character for doing too much and dealing too much damage. Yeah, I'd be joking. Well, no, it turns out he was serious. He felt like I hogged all the spotlight, having stayed away from the perception and investigation rolls, and was too OP in combat, you know, with me only attacking like 4 times, for a grand total of 31 damage, distributed between 4 attacks, without any extra attacks. Frisk is currently in shackles, as he wants to kick out Bard for causing too much trouble, but knowing said friend group, he knows he'll find better results for canceling the campaign and starting a new one with a separate friend group that already plays D&D and won't complain as much. Yeah, sometimes the best option is to just walk away from it all, but I would invite the people that you think will go along with you, people who don't really care for Bard all that much either. You could be surprised. I had a similar situation with a wizard in my game. I thought that everyone was cool with him, but turned out that literally no one was cool with him, and I was enabling his crappy behavior at our table. If I had never asked my players, I would have never known. This is a moderately optimized character getting hated on for being too spotlight hoggy, which is pretty silly the majority of the time. Now, I understand that especially with brand new players, it can be very obnoxious when someone comes in with an ultra min-max build that crushes everything in your path. But number one, this doesn't seem to be one of those insane builds, and number two, the group doesn't really seem to care about the in-game performance, considering Barbarian literally took out half of their attacks and nobody seemed to notice, especially Bard. Look, if 30 damage is enough to be a spotlight hog, I guess all of my players are spotlight hogs, because, come on.
I'm gonna pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Oof, and that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Q and Play series, where I answer your questions in a rambling, unscripted format while playing some video games. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Extreme Nat 1 to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell. Alright. Just gotta roll for the attack.